ended. He's played that song. Breaking the news, Hall of Fame on the line. With Connie's recipes, the stars align. He's the flame that never dies, a barbecue hero with fire in his eyes. Get in the smoke, let the fire take hold. Raise your lighters, stories told. Barbecue thunder, the spotlights glow. Rocking the pit on the barbecue show.
This is Michigan embedded correspondent John Solberg, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike your match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Welcome to the really big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show where we talk about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or you would like to follow the show during off-show hours, David Lee, how can they do that?
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening this evening. Coming up in about 12 minutes from now, a first-time guest. If you are in the Houston area, you certainly know him. You've probably eaten his food. If you are a lover of barbecue restauranting, you probably already know about him. If you are just somebody who likes barbecue in general, from a peripheral vision touch, you probably have heard about him. Texas Monthly raves about him. And he's making his debut appearance here on the show this evening. Grant Pinkerton of Pinkerton's Barbecue. So, Grant will be running basically the first hour, 14 and 35 past the first hour. So, we will get some background on Grant. I don't just assume everybody knows everything about Grant. And if you're new to this show, I wouldn't assume that you know anything about my show either. So we'll get a little history lesson in there. We'll talk about restauranting. We'll talk about multiple locations. We'll talk about what's hot in barbecue right now, whether it be backyard or in the restaurant scene. Of course, we have to be talking about beef and the prices and the crying. Did you know that the 4th of July is coming up this Saturday? And we'll talk to Grant about what he might be making and or suggesting. Tips from the pitmaster. Maybe we'll have him define the term pitmaster. for everyone would agree that Grant Pinkerton is a pitmaster. So let's put a definition to it here as we look to bridge into the holiday weekend. And then we will move to the second hour where we have nothing but open talk. I have topics, I have takes, I have all that fun stuff. Will it take us all the way to 11 o'clock this evening? Maybe not, but that's all right. We can just stop it wherever it stops and call it a night, because we have a very busy day tomorrow of selling Peterbilt trucks. And it's getting harder by the day, but I won't bore you with that. So that's how the show is laying out here this evening. Grant Pinkerton shortly, and then your humble host in the second hour. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, the Twitter, TikToks, Snappy Chats, and LinkedIn, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. Of course, we say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can watch on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we have a new YouTube poll question of the week, and we're asking everybody, including all guests, which will be Grant. Do you believe that the earth is flat? I would love to be sitting here right now, this very moment, and say, as I am glancing at the results of the YouTube instant poll, that we are sitting at 100%. You think the earth is round? I cannot tell you that. I can tell you that 86% of the YouTube voting public believes that the earth is round, but it appears 14% of you believe that the earth is flat. Come on.
Get that big stuff out of here.
I know in times over the last almost 2 decades, I have threatened to ban many of you from not only listening to the show, but wielding my great long-reaching power, banning you from the internet, period. Where you go to log on tomorrow and know you are banned. You'll have to access the dark web instead, or get through dial-up modem, something along the... But as far as high-speed internet is concerned, I would ban you. You 14%. It's not that I'm telling you that you're wrong for what you believe, but you're definitely wrong for what you believe.
Get that big stuff out of here.
14% of you think the earth is flat? Which leads me into the start of this evening, which is many of you going, how could you just blow over or just drop the conversation that you had with your coworker about the whole family thinking the earth is flat, and then the other things that I mentioned? I don't even want to get into that again. That was a hot button topic. Again, all things that I don't believe, especially that other stuff. I mean, if I got to pick between what also I said and then the earth is flat, I guess I'll die on the earth is flat. But between the two, the other one was not a great option. But I didn't... Like, I told you exactly the conversation that took place. I told you, does that open up a bunch of questions? Do you just verbally outright start making fun of those people and eventually they leave because they can't take it anymore? Or are they just unrelenting in their belief? Whatever, that's fine. I mean, you want to stick to your guns, stick to your guns. Let's have debate all day. That's why we have this show, of course. But that was about the end, the beginning, middle, and end of that discussion, and I haven't brought it up to my director of marketing since then because we're both of the same mindset anyway, so what's the use? Results of the poll question from last week, however: would you rather be muscular but ugly, or gorgeous and fat? And 56% of you said you'd rather be fat. Fat! You guys, just when I think we're all aligning and we're in that same kind of mindset, just when I think the Barbecue Central show is becoming an echo chamber for me, you guys step up to the plate and prove me wrong once again. It is not an echo chamber. In fact, it is a cataclysmic marvel of what goes on. What do they call it? It's a microcosm of where we're living today. Crazy stuff. 89% of you now believe that the Earth is round, and that's good to hear. Real good to hear. Grant Pinkerton is in the green room. We'll get to him here in just one moment. But before we get to that, something that we can all agree on. The best ceramic cooker is indeed Primo. Yes, of course. Now, what do we love about ceramic cookers, generally speaking? We love that they're fuel efficient, yes, especially on a day like today. Cleveland, oh, it's a burner today, 98 degrees. It snows 7 months out of the year. Shut up. Enjoy it. But on a day like today, with a proper load of charcoal, you dial in that draft right, and those ceramics get hot. If the weather stays like this for a couple days, there's a good chance that grill could run 48 hours on a load of charcoal if you're running it the right way. There's no doubt. Fuel miser. We love it. Also, you get low and slow for the traditional barbecue meat. You get rip-roaring hot if you want to do high-temperature grilling of steaks, other than cuts, whatever you like. It's like 2 grills in one when you're thinking about it. So don't let that sticker price kick you directly in the balls and have you down for the count. Remember, 2 cookers in one, cheap. Investment. Buy the best, only cry once. But when we really consider the high-end benefits, this ceramic cooker, amongst all other, gives you the real ability to do that true 2-zone cooking that you desire. We love 2-zone cooking, very important to both professional and backyard cooks. The best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a 2-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker isn't very realistic. Why? Because it is round. Primo Grill brings their game-changing oval design to the market. Shape gives you the ability to execute that 2-zone setup that you desire, along with all the other ceramic grill benefits as well. A number of accessories, only sold through dealers, so you got to find one. Go to primogrill.com, find a dealer near you, visit in person, touch and feel all the ovals, and then buy the one that best fits your needs. But don't cheap out. Many people have complained for buying down. Nobody's complained for buying up. Oh, my grill's too big. Said nobody ever. Don't buy down. You will have buyer's remorse. We don't want that. Primogrill.com is the place to go. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram. And we'll be back with Grant Pinkerton right after this. Stick around.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back. My guest in the first hour runs one of the most respected barbecue brands in Texas. He has routinely been on the Texas Monthly Top 50 barbecue list. You have seen or heard him on various news programs, other podcasts. And tonight, making his debut appearance on the Barbecue Central Show. Let's go ahead and welcome first-timer Grant Pinkerton of Pinkerton's Barbecue to the show. Hey, Grant.
How are you doing?
I'm fabulous. Appreciate you joining the show here for the first hour. Very excited to have you. Longtime faraway fan, although as we were kind of sound checking yesterday, I've been very close a number of times over the last couple of years, but my lack of mapology forced me to believe you were just a little bit further away than you really are. And you're also open later than most barbecue places that I would traditionally know of or want to go try out. We'll talk about that here in a minute. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody, including all guests, and you're the guest tonight, Grant. Do you believe the earth is flat?
No, I do not. I'm definitely a round earth kind of guy.
Did you ever teeter on a flat earther belief?
I never met anybody that almost fell off the earth, so I'm on team round earth.
91% of the YouTube voting public now agreeing with Grant and myself that the earth is indeed round. All right, so you are a Houston born and bred guy, correct?
I am born and bred in Houston, Texas. Lived in Austin for a while. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, Hook 'em Horns. And when I moved back home, let's see, that was in 2013, started, just got into work and then was cooking in my backyard, my parents' backyard, and giving food away. And as I always tell everybody, it kind of got out of control. And here I'm sitting with 3 restaurants. So it's been a wild ride since then.
What did you go to college for?
Rhetoric and writing.
Rhetoric and writing?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like specifically, what do you, I mean, not to ask a dumb question here, but like, what's the speciality in that?
The major itself, or what is rhetoric?
Like, were you going to be a teacher doing that?
No.
Or like, what was the goal? Speech writer?
I really like to write.
Yeah.
But it's not just writing; it's also visual. We had rhetoric of photography, video. So it's speaking, writing, and any sort of media persuasion. And a lot of people use it as it's a great major to do before you go to law school.
Did you want to be a lawyer?
That wasn't no, I wanted to write, actually.
So what would have been outside of the barbecue thing that has seemed to taken over, and you're obviously very successful at it, would have, you could redo it, not go into barbecue, continue on the writing and rhetoric path. Would you want to be like screenplay writer, TV show writer? What would you like to do?
No, I wanted to write for an outdoor magazine. I'm a big hunter and fisherman, and I always felt like I had a calling to be outdoors. So, the funny part is cooking barbecue is an outdoor thing. And when I got into that and there was kind of a fork in the road, I was starting a hunting and fishing outfitting business and cooking barbecue on the side and doing something else. I actually thought, well, you know what? You can hunt and fish when you're older, but it's a hell of a lot harder to start a barbecue joint when you're 50 or 60, So I had all the energy in the world. I was 24. And as people say, I was full of piss and vinegar, and I was ready to rock.
When you look at in your parents' backyard, well, I guess let me back it up for a second. As you're growing up, even before college, and I know Texas is the South, it's barbecue mecca and all this other stuff, but I wouldn't just automatically assume that the family is into barbecue or live fire. Was the family a barbecue-friendly family?
My parents cook, but they're not barbecuers. So when I was 12 years old, I cooked my first brisket. I just had around 9. My dad tells a story all the time. I was actually outside cooking steaks with him, and he had some steaks on the grill, and I looked down, and he was talking to himself, and he's like, "Man, I wonder if these steaks are done." And I took my finger and I poked the steak, and I said, "They're done." And he kind of looked at me like this 9-year-old kid standing next to the grill. And he's like, "Oh, you really think so?" I'm like, "They're done. Take them off." And so he pulled them off the grill and in kind of like a fashion, like, "Man, I'm going to show you," right? Takes them inside, cuts them, and they're perfect. And he's like, "Hey, you want to cook steaks tomorrow?" So after that, I took over the grill, and grilling was so much fun, but it only lasted, 10, 15 minutes. So then I decided, hey, I really like a barbecue pit, and I'd like to try cooking brisket because I want to burn stuff for 12 hours. And I asked my dad for a barbecue pit for Christmas. It was a Weber Smoky Mountain. Mm-hmm. I got it, and went to he took me to the butcher shop, and I said, "I'd like to smoke a brisket." And so the guy sold me a brisket, and I took it home. And I tell everybody, the first brisket I ever cooked, I followed the Legends of Texas cookbook recipe, which was a Cooper's recipe. It was salt and pepper and an hour a pound. And it turned out really awesome. And I was hooked. And then I proceeded to screw up the next 50 because I decided to keep adding stuff to it and changing the process up and, doing that kind of stuff. And you learn your lesson. After that, you kind of revert back to, hey, what the tried and true, traditional is good.
So I fancy myself a pretty decent backyard cook. I've had zero interest in ever starting a restaurant. I mean, in Cleveland, it's like probably triple dangerous because it's also winter most of the year before the weather actually gets nice. But outside of that, like I've never had anybody come over, eat my food, and go, that's kind of shitty. Everybody seems to love it because, for what I think, it's free. So are you going to tell me my food is shitty when you're not paying me for it? So I never bought into, you should start. Many people, you should get into a restaurant business, this and that. You're going through something similar. You're selling it out of the backyard, or people are just coming over to the backyard, and I'm sure everybody's pumping you full of sage advice on how Grant should get into this for a living. When do you decide I am going to take that risk? And then how do you try and get all those ducks in a row to give yourself the best shot of success?
I was working at a local gym at the time that was close. The owner of the gym was a family friend of ours. I was working the front desk, just, kind of figuring out exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And I was cooking on the weekends, and I'd bring the extras up, because if you cook 2 or 3 briskets and you're just a one dude eating, you got a lot left over, right? So I'd take it up to work and give it away, and everybody really seemed to love it. And then people started wanting to pay me for my leftovers. So they'd be like, "Hey, Grant, man, if you have, brisket left over, I'll pay you $100 for your leftovers." I'm like, okay, yeah, here you go. So that kind of started going. And then our family friend who was owner of the gym, he liked the barbecue too, but he pulled me aside and sat me down one day, and he said, "Grant, you're 24, you live at home with your parents, you don't have a girlfriend, you have no debt. Now is the time to be an entrepreneur, and you have a real passion and gift for barbecue." And this guy was an entrepreneur himself, and I owe a lot to him. And I was like, man, I don't know. And he says, "You really need to do it." So I noticed on the schedule the next week, my hours got cut, and he's like, "Hey, Tuesday or Wednesday, I forget what day it was, bring some barbecue in, bring beef ribs, brisket, ribs, sauce, whatever." I said, "All right." So I bring it in, and he has like 5 of his friends from, just nice cross section of the community. And they're all there, and they say, "Hey, Cedric, I want to, you got some barbecue for us?" Yeah. So he gives them my barbecue. And so I sit there and listen to these 5 guys that, they're from the same city as I am, but they're, pretty different background than me, eat all the food, and they're wondering where he got it from. They're ranting and raving about it. And finally they get to the end, and he says, "Grant actually cooked all that." And they broke their neck turning back around looking at me. And one of them said, "I know you're a white boy, but you got some brother in you." And that statement right there gave me the confidence, that, hey, my barbecue appealed to more than just my friends, right?
Yeah.
It spoke the language of everybody. And it was at that moment that I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I could do this, and what do I have to lose? I was, when I graduated college, I got into recovery. So I was newly sober at the time, and my whole life was in front of me. And so I thought, man, this is a great thing for me to do on Friday and Saturday nights. So I took all the money I'd made, and I'd always had a dream of playing saxophone. And I had gotten one that past year. My parents had given it to me, and I went to my dad and I asked him to give me a little extra cash to make up the difference for this 20-year-old barbecue trailer I wanted to buy. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to give you the cash, but you can sell that saxophone that I gave you for it. And if you really want to do this barbecue thing, hopefully it works out, and you can buy one later." So I went and I sold it, and I bought that trailer. And that first weekend I had a pop-up, and they let me use the parking lot at the gym. So it was nice, vertically integrated sales pitch, eat barbecue, go back and work out. And, I sold all this food, and I was sitting there, and I was only allowed to basically have $20 in my pocket at the time. And I'm sitting there staring at $1,200 worth of cash. But I looked out, and then all these people were out front with their families, eating barbecue, having a good time, just having fun. and they were all happy. And I realized at that moment in my life that I could make a living making people happy. And I said, man, this is awesome. My dad's a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. My brother told me, he's like, man, nobody ever comes to a lawyer happy. They're always got a problem, and I'm here to solve it, and they got to pay me to do it. So he's like, you're really lucky. So I just decided I would have another pop-up the next weekend and got my social media going. And, it was back in the Texas craft barbecue thing was just barely getting going.
What year is it, do you think?
Much. That's 2014.
All right.
So we started the trailer in 14, and we started the restaurant in 16. And so we got that going. And, like I said, my world, everything in my world had just shifted. And so I was just kind of, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and doing the barbecue thing. And I made it through the first summer, and now my dad tells me, it's like, I really thought, if you could make it through the first summer and you were still interested in it, then it was something real, and I did. And I loved it. I loved cooking. Cooking was it was basically my therapy. It was really relaxing. It still is. And it just kept growing and growing and growing, and had kind of an interesting marketing strategy. I felt like around here, barbecue is mostly something that, families ate, and they ate the same exact barbecue that they had been for the last 10 or 20 years. And then the kids grew up eating it too. And so that was like their barbecue place. People are like at least I don't know about in Cleveland, but here people are very like it's like a gang they're part of, like, oh no, I eat at such and such's place. And I said, well, I don't really want to try to convince people that have been stuck eating at the same place for 30 years to come eat my place. I want to go open in an area where I know a bunch of people that are 25 to 30 or 20 to 30 years old that are starting families for themselves. And I want to be their barbecue place.
Yeah.
And the easiest way, I don't have any money, but I do have social media, and I can reach them for free through social media. And this is where my rhetoric degree came in, because through Twitter and Facebook and stuff, I say we're the 120 character generation. Now it's more than that, but how can I convince you that's never met me before that I have the best barbecue in town in 120 characters, and also get you to quit scrolling, right? Because that's the big thing. And I just kind of started marketing myself differently than other people, and the lines started coming, and we were popping up kind of outlaw style at bars, and all these. It was like a thing. It was like underground barbecue, and then it just naturally led its way to brick and mortar.
2 years of pop-ups.
Yeah, 2 years of pop-ups, and a lot of guys, they get in the trailer and they cook every day, but I didn't think that was a very good. It's just me, so. As far as like sweat equity is concerned, staying up all night and cooking every day seems like a really bad strategy for a sustainable business. So what I said was, hey, every week or every other week, I'll have a pop-up. It takes me about 5 days, but 3 days to do it, and then 2 days to clean up. Then I get 2 days rest. Maybe 1 week I do a pop-up. Next week I do a catering, right? But I always did a pre-sale so that I would never lose money. I would make sure that whatever money, and I would take money in advance from everybody. I would go to the store. I would just unload all the cash that they'd given me and buy meat. And then all the extra meat that I used the customers' money to pay for, I would sell to walk-ups after the pre-orders got filled. Mm-hmm. And weather here is pretty unpredictable. It can rain. It can do all sorts of stuff. So I just made sure that I was never negative, right? Well, anytime we had a pop-up, we at least had to break even or make a little money. It was never worth it for my time and my effort to take a step back. And so that's kind of how I decided to structure and run that business. And I tell a lot of guys when they're getting into this that that's the way you need to do it. And they don't really listen to me too often, but I think it was a good strategy.
So breaking even seems like you're not making any money. Are you doing something on the side to generate some extra income? Or were you always winning?
I was still, well, I mean, I made money from the beginning, but I also lived on my parents' couch and I had no debt. So I met this really nice girl that I ended up marrying. And, we'd go out and on our first date, we split the bill.
Very romantic.
I didn't have very much money at all. I tried 3 times to get a pay and she insisted. And I thought, man, this girl's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So worked.
At the end of the second year, or as you're getting through that second year, you're actively thinking we can take this road show and put it in a barn somewhere and make a go of it, brick and mortar?
No, actually, I said when people would ask me, do you think you're going to open a restaurant? I said, I don't know. If I'm supposed to open a restaurant, God will tell me whether if I need to open a restaurant or not. And I said, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm done making decisions in my life. I'm just going to wait till the next door opens. And I was at a catering job one night for a gentleman, and he said, you ever considered opening a restaurant? I said, yeah, sure. I said, but when the time's right, I'll know. And I said, something will happen and I'll either, close it up or I'll know that it's the right move. And he said, well, if you're ever interested in opening a restaurant, please, I'd like to write you $100,000 check to make that happen. And I said, don't write me that check. Let me go home and think about it. And I'm going to call you. And, if I want, investors or whatever, you'll be the first person I call. And, I went home and I said, well, there's the sign. I said, it's time to open a restaurant, whether I think I'm ready or not. This is it. And, called the guy back and said, you know what? I'll take the check. And, it cost a lot more money than that to open the restaurant, but I went out and found it and there were people there that wanted to support me and, they liked the food and there wasn't much around here at the time that was that quality. So, it was a good move for all them.
Can you let us behind the curtain a little bit on the business end? So if let's say I'm that guy, I'm stroking you that $100,000 check. What's the deal that you're making with him? Obviously he's infusing you with some cash, but what's his kickback? Man, I forget what the original deal was on that, but it ended up being all their best investment they made for that year. That's for sure. So he's getting money back and then he's getting a percentage of like gross profit every month for X amount of time or indefinitely?
It was like a preferential return type deal. So it was like almost like a loan with a tail,
Yep. Yep.
And I didn't give away a ton of my business because I felt like one, and I hear this a lot in this business. A lot of guys just give away the whole restaurant in order to get one open. Man, I'm going to be doing all the work. I'm the one staying up all night. There's a million big fish in the pond with a bunch of cash in their pocket. You can find more. But if I'm not making money, what's my incentive to keep busting my ass in a hard business and keeping this thing going?
Yeah.
And I hate owing people money. I hate it. So I spent, the first couple of years running the restaurant, signing everybody else's check and never signing one for myself. I lived above it for 3.5 years. Like I said, the girl that I lived with, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she had a job and we lived off a very, 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 very small income for those 2 years. With no heat above it. Just, it was like that 8 miles uphill to school every day, but we loved it. It was like, it was a certain snapshot in time in our life. And, living above the restaurant for 3.5 years really allows you to really ingrain some culture into the place.
Do you know pretty quickly when you get the brick and mortar open that you're going to be successful?
Well, the day we opened, there was like 600 people in line. And so I felt pretty good about that. I remember waking up the next day after I was like, 48 hours of just really crazy kind of craziness. And I wake up the next day and I'm like, man, I got to do it again. And I'm going to do it again every day for the rest of my life, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, here we go, And it was like, at that moment, I made a point to try not to hire anybody with any experience because I felt like if I was stuck in the restaurant cutting brisket or those kind of things for the long term. That was not what was best for the business.
Yep.
Like, how could we scale? I looked at every other successful restaurateur in Houston, and there are some very successful ones. And man, they weren't stirring the sauce. You know, they were running the show, right? And I thought long and hard about how they had their stuff set up and structured, and I kind of made a game plan. And anyway, I liked training people myself. I think that I'm a good teacher. I think that's one of my skills is I really am good at simplifying barbecue for people and teaching them. And so I would just hire these guys that didn't really have any experience, except for they had a passion for it. They're a backyard guy or whatever, and they just really wanted to get into the business. And then I would train them how I did it. And it was great because I could leave or be doing something else, and I know the only way they knew how to do it was my way. And that's been a really successful strategy for us. And we still, for the most part, the hardest way to get a job at Pinkerton's is have worked at another barbecue place and come apply. Still to this day.
You add a second location. You eventually add a third location out of town. So you have one in San Antonio. You have the two in Houston. As you look at where you started to where you are now, mid 2026, how much has stayed the same? How much has evolved over that 10-year span?
In the restaurant or in barbecue?
Yeah, in the restaurant.
Well, a lot. I always tell everybody, people are like, oh, the barbecue's never changed. It's always the same there. It's super consistent, but it actually changes quite a bit every year. My whole goal is to, when I change it, nobody ever notices, but they just leave saying like, man, that was the ribs today were really extra good. Same profile, dialed in, And so I do a lot of competitions too. And so I'll test some things on the competition trail because it's basically a free sample group. And then I'll roll them back into the restaurant in kind of a way that works for mass scale, right? Certain tweaks to a sauce or rubs, or we've changed techniques before. I actually we changed the entire way we cooked brisket 2 summers ago while I was out of town in Montana. I just had like a moment where I really wanted to change things, and I did it all over the phone. And then we got the Michelin Guide that year, so I think it worked.
What did you change?
I changed how we were cooking, and like our pull time, and the method of which, and the temperature. I had them pull all the tuning plates out of our close pit and cook at a much hotter temperature, decrease the finishing temperature, and hold for a longer period of time. I don't know. I just thought about it in my head, and it made sense to me. And so I told him, do this tomorrow and see what happens, and then film it and send it back to me and let me know. And so over the course of 3 or 4 days, we redialed in the brisket. By the time I got back from Montana, I say it's the best brisket we'd ever been serving. And I was proud of myself for that one, and then they were doing the Michelin tasting during that time. And so I felt like, I don't know, that was another one of those moments that I just was kind of struck with this idea to change something, and it ended up working out.
I feel like the dirty secret or rumor is that, well, Texas barbecue, Central Texas barbecue is cooked this way. Everybody kind of uses the same seasonings. Everybody kind of uses the same beef, same cooking the magic is in the hold. They're taking tomorrow's briskets off. Let's say, a Tuesday at 6 p.m., you're taking briskets off, and those are going to be put in an alto sham. They're going to be held until Wednesday's dinner service. So the ones you're taking off Tuesday night are the ones you're going to serve on Wednesday. Maybe a little far-fetched or exaggerated, but there is this long talked about extensive hold time that seems to put Texas barbecue over the top when compared to some other regions that cook brisket. How much of that is true?
I think it definitely helps. For me, it helps a lot because we serve from 11 to 10, so that's a long period of cooking. But also, of serving. So The other thing, though, is that's also an extended period of holding just within the day itself. I think, like I said, consistency is the name of the game. And at least my thought in doing it was if I can pull at a temperature instead of a feel, if I have 3 locations and 8 or 10 guys in each pit room, that's 30 different hands that have a different feeler, right? And if it's like making sauce or casing sausage, every person's going to be slightly different. And back before we had this method, people would, I could tell who pulled each brisket. Like each one had a signature style of how the tenderness would be on that brisket. And they all thought it was correct. And I would describe to them exactly what I was looking for. And they'd be like, yep, exactly. That's how it is. But they were all different, right? So I felt like if we can dial it into it, pulling out a temperature and putting a little science on that end, that would help create consistency in our product and would help the product overall.
If you never made it into the Texas Monthly Top 50 list, how much would that change your business?
Now?
Ever?
Or then? Well, when the first time we made it, the 2017 list, I think that was like pinnacle list of Texas Monthly. It was like the craft barbecue age had really flourished, and you had all this place, a lot of still around, but I just remember our business doubled overnight, and that was it. It never looked back. It's been going up since, and I've talked to other people. It was at a particular junction in time where everybody wasn't on Instagram, influencers weren't everywhere, right? People couldn't just open an app and find good food like super easy. And there was still like all these people were learning about craft barbecue for the first time. And when that list came out, people were like, holy shit, and let's travel to all of these. And as soon as that happened, all of the stuff that I just mentioned, it happened too. So nowadays, people can open Instagram up and search a hashtag or their favorite food person, or there's so many barbecue people commenting on things that, people have a good idea of what's good now, And my philosophy then and that top 50 in 2017 was these people are going to go around, like let's say we had 8 places in Houston or 7 places in Houston. Everybody's going to, it was crazy, dude. Like everybody's just rushing around to all these different places and trying them. And I said, it doesn't matter what the list says or what a writer says. The people are going to pick what their favorite ones are, and those are going to be the winners.
Yep.
And that played out, And I felt like, they tried them all, and then they settled in, and it was that 17 list was nuts. And then the subsequent lists that have come out, I've talked to some people, and at least people that have been on it before. It just wasn't the sonic boom like that one, but I think it was mostly because the influencers weren't around. It was the source of it was the oracle of barbecue. And anyway, it changed my life, that's for sure, and I owe a great deal of gratitude to being on that. And I was nervous as hell the night before. I had a slight inkling they'd called me for a fact check. But even this last time when we made it on, they did the same thing. And I'm like, maybe they called me for a fact check for some other, like the best ribs in the state, but you missed the top 50, or, they have the recommended or the best of the rest or whatever they call it. Now I'm like, maybe it's for that, But I couldn't sleep that night before. My wife, my now wife, had like an engagement that she had to go to the day before. And I said, I can't go. I basically just stayed up in the apartment above the restaurant the entire day and watched TV and played video games and just tried to like pretend it wasn't happening. I don't really play video games, but I just needed something to take my mind off it, And it was a long day and night. And I think that was, I'm not really a crier, but my wife tells me I cried when that happened. The first one. It was a culmination of a lot of things in my life coming together.
Sounds like.
So that happened, and I am a person, I don't allow myself to pat myself on the back I probably should do it more often, but it was like, okay, well, we're on it. So it's day one. We need to maintain it, And the guys are like, oh, can we have a cake? I'm like, nope. Keep going forward,
Let's talk economics a little bit. We all know, and it's been a large topic of this show for the last number of months, if not a year. Beef market, highly volatile, roller coaster, whatever you want to call it. So as an operator moving volumes of prime brisket every day, what is the true state of meat prices right now in mid-2026, and how are you navigating those margins without compromising quality or pricing out the regulars?
Well, we made the decision a long time ago to not decrease quality in order to stagnate price. I believe that our customers are ones that will pay for the quality. That's what their expectation is, and that's what they want. I think at our stores, we've lost the value customer a long time ago. At the beginning of craft barbecue, when $22 a pound for brisket was, oh my God, and, but, I feel I leaned in. I've always loved cooking pork and ribs. And I mean, now we're doing whole hog at our restaurant. I tell people, the judges at Memphis, mate, I have a passion for pigs. I don't know what to say. But cooking ribs was like my calling card. It's like I was deadly on the competition trail in ribs, and we just put a lot of effort into our ribs at the restaurant, and they weren't traditional Central Texas style ribs by any means.
You cook the Texas competitions mostly?
Yes. Yeah. I've cooked a lot of different ones. Yep. I've even cooked all the way up in Galax, Virginia, in an MBN up there.
Yep.
So we have a heavy emphasis on pork at our restaurant, just putting a lot of quality out, and it shows. I'd be shocked if there's any selling as many pork ribs as we do in the state.
What do you look at from a menu expansion standpoint? When I talk to a lot of operators, originally I started out and it seemed like they just had a volume of items that they wanted to put on the menu, whether it was trying to be everything to everybody or they just felt everything that they could cook was going to be great, should be on the menu. Did you start tight and expand, or did you go big and whittle back?
No, we've always had a really tight menu at our restaurant. This is not a place to come if you want 15 different protein options. But right now, the places we've expanded, we hit a RGC in chicken at the Houston World Championship a few years ago, and we took that profile and put it on a boneless, skinless chicken thigh. And that turned out to be a real good seller for us, along with our turkey. So, having two poultry options, and actually when we made the last Texas Monthly list, that was one of the items that they highlighted. And I remember reading it in the magazine. I'm like, oh, thank God they didn't talk about the beef ribs. The chicken thighs, I'm actually going to make some money off of. I'm not going to make any money off of the beef rib.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I was really happy about that. And we've expanded into a little bit more pork products. So we cook a pork prime rib, which is basically like a bone-in loin chop with the spinalis still attached. And then I'll debone it and kind of cure it for a couple days and then smoke it really, really slowly. And people really like it. It's delicious. But basically, you got your classic trinity: brisket, ribs, sausage, chopped pork. But even at current price, it's hard to get Texans, at least, to just drop the brisket and switch to shoulder. So
is it the
I'm
Texans
sure that
that are a problem, or is it the tourists that are the problem?
For what, eating the beef?
Yeah.
Oh no. If you could give people $5 chopped shoulder sandwiches here, and they would still choose a $15 beef sandwich.
Yeah.
I will go in there and I'll eat the chopped pork. I love it. And we do sell a lot of ribs though. So, I think that helps offset our cost. And I don't see beef coming down anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I do think that slowly but surely people are going to get more accustomed to eating pork barbecue here. And I mean, a big thing for us is on Saturdays, instead of cooking 15 or 20 more briskets, we put a 200 something plus pound hog on the pit and we sell that thing on the line.
What do you see for the next 5 years for craft barbecue?
Well, I know that recently, well, not so recently, I guess, maybe 6 years feels recent though. There's a lot of fusion going on. I tell people all the time, like, that's not who I am. I'm a pretty straight shooter when it comes to barbecue. But I definitely think there's been like an over proliferation of places that have opened, and there's probably going to be a consolidation. I think by 2027, the average price of brisket in Texas will be over $40 or more. And that's to tell you, that's $5 away from where I am right now. Yeah. But there's already places that are at 40 or 38, a lot of them. So that's happening. I think some people are going to overreact and hurt themselves by getting too far away from what people want, by being too worried about charging for what people actually want.
They're not going to charge enough, you mean?
No, they're going to pivot their menu too much and they're going to lose their customers.
4th of July coming up this weekend. So for the everyday ham and egger out in the backyard, like, what are you recommending to cook? And then if you're going to do high heat grilling, I think, most of the people are going to be grilling versus barbecuing if we get into that whole argument. But what are the top 2-3 mistakes that you think everybody makes, and what are you suggesting they give a whirl?
Well, I think that one of the things that I've been cooking a lot lately is actually pork chops. And I'll go to the grocery store and I'll find some. I mean, we use Prairie Fresh at the restaurant, and they're great, but just a nice marbled pork chop. And then I think the big thing is, it's a great thing to cook for 4th of July, but a highly marbled pork chop and then pull it at 142, 145 degrees is, I mean, people have just been overcooking their pork for so long that people kind of turned away from it. But I cooked a pork porterhouse at my house 2 nights ago that we pulled at 142, and I just seasoned it with just salt and let it sit on the counter for 45 minutes and pull some of that salt in there. And then I grilled it really hard like you would sear a steak, and then kind of offset it a little bit and let it go. I mean, it ate like a steak. I finished it with like a basil pesto and pecorino cheese and lemon. It was phenomenal. But my mother came over to drop something off at the house, said, "Hey, try this pork chop." And she ate it, and her first thing she said was like, "Man, this thing eats just like a good steak." And I said, "Yeah." I said, it's really important not to overcook pork chops and a lot of pork items, and we've all been doing that. So for all those people out there that are listening, please, 145 degrees is the new safe temperature for pork. Like, it's even like the USDA is already changed their stuff on it. And then I like cooking ribs. Even like some of my favorite ribs I've ever cooked have been on a Weber grill over coals. And I just put the coals on one side and I'll sear them off and I'll put them on the other and close the lid for an hour. High heat, man. It's like 350, 400 degrees in there. And my wife calls them old school ribs because they taste pretty old school. And, salt, pepper, a little bit of everything rub on there, which is a rub of ours. And, man, those are delicious. So those are 2 things that will be getting cooked at the Pinkerton household this weekend.
How many competitions are you doing in a year?
Well, I always say, like, I break my life down into seasons. So January starts the competition season and June ends it because it's too hot here. and it's not enjoyable anymore. And I'm around barbecue every day, so it's not like I'm getting my fill on the weekends and then going back to my desk job. So I don't need it to scratch the itch. I love the camaraderie of competition barbecue. I love the just loony luck that's involved sometimes, where you have great boxes that do horrible, and then you turn in a terrible box that does good. That's just kind of fun. It also keeps me grounded when reading judges' scorecards. It's like, you're just not going to be able to please everybody, which is a good lesson to remember in the restaurant game too. And some people just have bad taste, and it's okay. It's okay to remember that. And then summer, mid-June through August, is fishing and vacation season. So it slows down at the restaurant in July and August. And I like to do a lot of fishing during that time. And then fall is football season. So we actually have we actually go up to Austin, and we have a tent set up at the University of Texas games. And the university has us set up and sell food there. So a lot of weekends are taken up that. I'm an avid football fan, so I'm at all those games. And then it's kind of like hunting season. I'm a big duck hunter and deer hunter, goose hunter. And then it's January again, and it's time to hit the trail. Now, this year was derailed because we opened the restaurant January 20th, and I was in the restaurant 60 straight or 58 straight days for 14, 16 hours. So, I had my fill of barbecue, but we did the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. We did the Hogs for the Cause, which we have our own team out there. And we did Memphis in May. And then we traveled up to New York for an event, a cooking event in New York City in April. So we did 4.
Do you do the Michener fundraiser?
I do.
Yeah.
I've been doing it, I think, since the first year it happened.
Yeah, I'd love to get up there.
So, that's a great time.
Yep.
It happens to always fall on my wife's birthday weekend. It's always the same. So she gets to spend her birthday in New York City every year. So her gifts always rock,
Yeah, that's great.
Gets to go out to good dinners. Anyway, it works out well for us. We took my 3-year-old daughter this year. It was a good time. So next year, we're looking forward to knocking off a few more of those. And then obviously this summer we would do more, but I have a baby boy coming in early August. So
congrats.
I'm super occupied.
Yeah. You going to watch that new barbecue show coming out on the 13th?
Yeah, they called me to be on that.
Oh,
and
yeah?
It was filmed the same days as the Michener. And I was like, I'm taking my 3-year-old and my wife for her birthday on a trip to New York City. I can't back. I'm like, sorry, I'm booked.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, maybe you can work around it. There's another person that's going to be at the Michener that's going to do that this year. And I'm like, I think you missed the point where I said my wife's birthday and my 3-year-old's first trip to New York.
Yes.
If it was just a work trip, yeah, I could cancel it, but I'm not burning those brownie points,
No. Yeah, I mean, you only get to do that, once. So
sounds really cool. It was actually I've been called quite a few times to be on some shows, and a lot of them don't pique my interest at all. And this was, being an outdoorsman, this was the first one that I had, when they said it was 2 people, man, I had the second guy. I even called him and was like, dude, we're going to get on this show and we're going to make some noise on this thing.
Who was it going to be your partner?
He works for me. His name's Louis Gonzalez. He's our director of barbecue ops. He's also, we just literally, we met each other at a competition several years back. He set up across from me and got to talking. He was a great guy. I volunteered to help me out at Memphis in May and got to know each other a little better. And then he was like, hey man, you mind if I work at the restaurant just a few hours to make a little extra cash? Man, sure. And he's one of these guys that he came in and he treated the place like it was his own, and he was only there 20 hours a week, and he was he's an electrician, and he's like, I love barbecue. I'd like to become full time. I'm like, all right. Anyway, he's done everything right. And we cook really well together. He was in the trailer with me at Memphis in May this year, helping me box stuff. And when it comes to cooking barbecue, we fit together like a puzzle.
Yeah. Grant Pinkerton joins us here on the show. Pinkerton's Barbecue, spelled the right way, BARBECUE.com is the website. Grant, appreciate the extended time here this evening and continued success. Next time we get down there, obviously, I'm going to give you a shout so we can get up there and have some great Pinkerton's Barbecue. But in the meantime, continued success.
Thank you very much.
You got it. There he is, Grant Pinkerton, right there. Great story, success, and story of recovery that he just briefly mentioned, but that didn't go unnoticed either. Wow. 3 years on top of the restaurant. There you go. That's the way to do it. Again, Pinkerton's Barbecue, BARBECUE, 2 locations in Houston, 1 in San Antonio, so check them out. If you are looking for top quality Texas Monthly top 50 rated barbecue, and it has been list after list since 2017. Oh, where did I go? Here we go. Before we wrap the first hour, this show proudly sponsored by our pals over at Fireboard. Makers of the Fireboard 2, the Fireboard Pro, the Fireboard Spark, the Fireboard Beacon, the wireless Fireboard Pulse. You can experience total control over all of your devices from anywhere in the world with the Fireboard app. So you can find out more by visiting the website, fireboard.com, or call them, 816-945-2232. That's 816-945-2232 today. All right, we're back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
We thank Grant Pinkerton for joining us for the last hour. Pinkerton's Barbecue, BARBECUE.com, the website. 2 locations in Houston, 1 in San Antonio. Visit him, support him. Guy that's giving back, guy that's seen a lot of success, stays humble, love it. Great work ethic, looking to help people out, all the good stuff. All right, so we are ready to roll into the second hour, so refresh your libations if you are libationing, soft, or if you're into the adults, whatever you like. Got some things to move through here. We'll get your poll question update, and then we'll call it an evening. You're listening and potentially watching the Barbecue Central Show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around. We'll be right back.